Metaphors, as Milan Kundera famously said, are not to be trifled with. But now and again, the metaphors between biological evolution and economic evolution are so powerful that they beg to be used. And such a metaphor leapt out at me recently when I reflected on how leadership teams in the life science industry often react to their own situational analysis. Allow me to explain before I try to pull out a practical lesson. A paradox of evolution is that the most well-adapted creatures are also the most vulnerable. That's because well-adapted species thrive in their chosen environment but decline when that environment changes. So we see this when climate change alters habitats, for instance. Very few creatures, Homo sapiens is the best example, are able to thrive in many different habitats. Well, what is it about humans that allow us to survive in changing conditions and to occupy habitats as diverse as the tropics and the Arctic? How do we differ from the polar bear or the orange-spotted filefish or the Monteverde harlequin frog, all of which occupy niches and are under threat? This is an old evolutionary question which was debated by Darwin and Wallace, but I think Steven Pinker put it best. He described humans as capturing the cognitive niche, meaning that our abstract intelligence allowed us to evolve to get the best out of any given situation without restricting us to a particular physical habitat. By contrast, the mental software of other species is superbly but inflexibly adapted to their specific habitat. Just think how those cognitive genes were selected for. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, our ancestors and those of our now extinct cousins huddled round a shrinking waterhole. As the water evaporated, our cousins followed their genetic programming and huddled closer to it, trying to avoid the thirsty lions and other predators that were drawn to the same spot. Our genetically slightly different ancestors, by comparison, reasoned that the future was grim. They took one last long drink and headed off for the horizon. Somewhere in their genome, they had a mutation for forward thinking and imagining other, wetter, safer habitats. And that's why they have descendants, you and I, and why their cousins are only known to us as fossils. Now I simplify, of course, but you get my point. Let me bring you back to the life sciences industry. The waterhole is a metaphor for peers who are willing to stand high prices, and it's shrinking fast. It won't ever dry up completely, but it will shrink to only difficult unmet needs such as orphan drugs and some areas of oncology and other neurodegenerative diseases, for example. The sweet but shrinking pool is being fought over by ever more desperate and more dangerous animals. Now, the cleverest and the luckiest of these creatures will survive, but the pool won't be big enough for every thirsty company. The life science equivalent of our cousins, the traditional research-based companies, will stick around this waterhole as long as they can before they die of thirst or they get eaten. The life science equivalent of our cognitively skilled ancestors will evaluate the situation and head for the horizon. Now, some may head to disease management, some may go and set up home with their distant cousins in telehealth or other business model variations. But they will become more and more distant from their traditional cousins. Interestingly, these adaptive companies will be repeating the experience of their own ancestors, the apothecaries, some of whom pulled their genes with dye chemists 150 years ago, while others were eaten by retailers. Now, I hope my metaphor is not too stretched, but the lesson is clear enough. Focusing on innovative, expensive new products feels a comfortable thing for many companies to do, but it won't support most of the companies that are following that strategy. The pool simply isn't big enough. Looking for new ways to create value will be a better option for many life science companies, but only those firms with certain cognitive genes will be able to do it. The question is, can your company change your genes in time?